Could legendary Godzilla survive the Heisei era? The Heisei Godzilla films from 1984 to 1995 are widely known to have the most powerful monsters in the franchise. But how does that compare to one of the strongest Godzillas? Legendary Godzilla is about 120 meters tall. He is very agile, and he was able to shoot to the center of the Earth with his atomic breath. But could he survive the Heisei era? For this video, I won't be using power scaling, only what is shown from the films. First up is Biollante, created from the mixture of a rose and Godzilla's cells. In Biollante's final form at 120 meters, Biollante had a few weapons, mainly its vines being able to wrap around Godzilla, and not allowing him to use his atomic breath. With the vines also being made of Godzilla's cells, it was able to completely impale Heisei Godzilla's hand and shoulder. Earlier in that film, Godzilla was not greatly affected by his atomic breath being shot back at him 10,000 times more powerful. So against legendary Godzilla, the vines would be incredibly deadly. If hit in the right spot, legendary Godzilla could be fatally injured. Biollante's acid spray wouldn't make things easier either. If legendary Godzilla could focus through the pain, he would blast Biollante with his atomic breath. At this point, Biollante's body would immediately start breaking down, which would lead legendary Godzilla to completely destroy Biollante with another blast of his atomic breath. Next is King Ghidorah, being 150 meters tall, and having the physical strength to overpower Godzilla, who was shown in the film to be able to lift Ghidorah into the air multiple times. King Ghidorah weighing 80,000 metric tons, and legendary Godzilla 90,000 metric tons, would be very even in physical strength. Legendary Godzilla could knock Heisei Ghidorah down, but Ghidorah would get back up and fly into legendary Godzilla, knocking him down and stomping on him. Against Godzilla's atomic breath, Ghidorah would block it with his wings. The battle would go on until legendary Godzilla started to run out of energy. Seeing this, Ghidorah would grab him by his head, blocking his ability to use atomic breath. Using his agility, legendary Godzilla could manage to get out of King Ghidorah's grasp, shooting his atomic breath into Ghidorah's neck, cutting it off. Ghidorah would then fly away, leaving a very weakened legendary Godzilla standing there. But Mecha King Ghidorah would be a big problem for legendary Godzilla. Its lasers were able to knock Godzilla down, and its future armor was able to handle Godzilla's atomic breath, with far less damage. Mecha King Ghidorah would be able to capture legendary Godzilla, and fly him over the ocean. But Mecha King Ghidorah would meet the same demise as he did in the film, destroying Mecha King Ghidorah and knocking legendary Godzilla out temporarily. Next is Mothra Larva. It wouldn't be a problem at all for legendary Godzilla. It could annoy him, but legendary Godzilla could just pick her up and throw her, with Mothra Larva not really having any effective weapons. But Batra Larva is a different story. Using its lasers and physical attacks, it was able to challenge Godzilla. Batra Larva was also able to handle being slammed into the ground so hard it cracked the earth open, consuming both Godzilla and Batra into an underground volcano. Legendary could punch Batra Larva and use his tail to knock him back. But Batra's lasers would hurt legendary Godzilla, leaving him open to a physical attack by Batra's horn. Being 20,000 tons, Batra would be thrown by legendary Godzilla, and with him not really having any other effective weapons, he would be eventually defeated. Batra's final form would be about the same, with its laser being a bit more powerful with it being able to knock Godzilla back, but his demise from legendary Godzilla would either be from atomic breath, or from a stomp on the ground. Mothra's final form is a much better match against legendary Godzilla. Heisei Mothra is equipped with stun lasers and dust, almost being able to overpower Heisei Godzilla by herself. The dust can shoot electricity, and reflect Godzilla's atomic breath back at him. This could greatly harm legendary Godzilla, due to his skin being vulnerable to the power of his own atomic breath. This weakness would cause him to use his tail to knock Mothra down, going further to destroy her with his other physical attacks. Next is Rodan, able to fly fast enough to dodge Heisei Godzilla's atomic breath, which is one of the fastest in the franchise. Rodan was able to knock Godzilla over, but was defeated by Godzilla choking him and shooting atomic breath at him multiple times. Legendary Godzilla might be able to harm Rodan, but with his physical strength being less than Heisei Godzilla, he would not be as effective in his stomps or his physical attacks. The fight would be back and forth, until Rodan was ultimately defeated by a series of physical attacks and well-timed atomic breath blasts from legendary Godzilla. Fire Rodan would be very similar, with his atomic breath making the fight a bit closer, but overall would not give him the winning edge in this battle. And now is Mechagodzilla 2, the most powerful Mechagodzilla in every way. Being the complete opposite of Monster vs. Mechagodzilla, Mechagodzilla 2 is built like a tank, made with weapons far greater than even Heisei Godzilla's atomic breath. His eye and mouth lasers were able to push Godzilla back, but his plasma cannon was able to knock Heisei Godzilla out and push him into the air. In fact, the plasma cannon is powered by Godzilla's own atomic breath, making legendary Godzilla's most powerful weapon his greatest enemy. This weapon is stated to be able to shoot Godzilla's atomic breath back at him multiple times more powerful. The plasma cannon alone would be able to knock legendary Godzilla out, and the possibility of MonsterVerse Godzilla getting close to Mechagodzilla would be extremely low. The amount of weapons hitting him at once would be able to keep him back. And this isn't even mentioning the stun missiles that were able to stun Heisei Godzilla for multiple minutes. But given the possibility that legendary Godzilla could get close, he could knock Mechagodzilla down. Mechagodzilla being 150 metric tons would fly into MonsterVerse Godzilla, greatly harming him. If legendary Godzilla gets too close again, Mechagodzilla's only option would be a point-blank blast from his plasma cannon. This would at least knock legendary Godzilla out, which at that point Mechagodzilla would impale legendary Godzilla with his G-Crusher, unleashing all his weapons and sending electricity through MonsterVerse Godzilla's body, leaving Mechagodzilla 2 with the victory. This isn't even counting Super Mechagodzilla, where he became even more powerful and is able to float mid-air while shooting all of his lasers at once. Not even Heisei Godzilla could stand a chance against this form of Mechagodzilla. Next is Mogira, a better version of Mechagodzilla 2. Legendary Godzilla would try to get close, but he would be met with Mogira's plasma cannon and eye lasers, which he can shoot far faster than Mechagodzilla could. These lasers are so powerful that despite not even taking the full force of the blast, Heisei Godzilla was knocked out for 2 full minutes from it, something no other monster has ever done. Legendary Godzilla would be instantly destroyed by these lasers, but if he managed to get close, Mogira's nose drill would cut into Godzilla's neck. MonsterVerse Godzilla would then use his atomic breath, knocking Mogira back. Mogira would then roll around, shooting his lasers and knocking legendary Godzilla down. Then as the final blow, Mogira would shoot his drilling missiles into legendary Godzilla, thus defeating him. Next is Space Godzilla, the mixture of Godzilla's cells and the power of multiple supernovas. He has the most powers of probably any Godzilla monster. He emits an EMP around him constantly, with him shutting down Mogira through a concentrated form of this EMP blast. He can control gravity and lift anything through these powers. Space Godzilla, similar to Heisei Godzilla, can shoot electricity out of his hands, but also through his shoulders as well. Against Space Godzilla, legendary Godzilla's atomic breath would be completely useless, with Space Godzilla being able to react to Heisei Godzilla's atomic breath. But if legendary Godzilla could use his atomic breath, so Space Godzilla couldn't reflect it, it would hit him. But just like Heisei Godzilla, it wouldn't have much of any effect. Space Godzilla, being 80,000 metric tons, would then transform into his flying form, weighing the most out of any monster, weighing 720,000 metric tons. In this form, legendary Godzilla would not be able to hit him in the air, and using his advantage in the sky, Space Godzilla would be able to shoot his lasers at MonsterVerse Godzilla, which leads to how powerful this laser is. Space Godzilla's laser was able to drop Godzilla about as fast as Mechagodzilla 2's plasma cannon. Similar to the plasma cannon, Heisei Godzilla was knocked out multiple times from it. Legendary Godzilla's only chance would be up close with his physical attacks, but with Space Godzilla being taller than him by a few meters, there is only little he could do. This isn't even mentioning when Space Godzilla's main source of power was broken, he was able to effortlessly pick up Mogira and throw him using just his tail. This might not seem impressive, but when you consider that Mogira weighs 160,000 metric tons, and Space Godzilla lifted him using the end of his tail, it shows legendary Godzilla would be far weaker physically than Space Godzilla, with legendary Godzilla's greatest lifting feat being from when he lifted Muto Prime, weighing 122,000 metric tons. Legendary Godzilla's fight against Space Godzilla would be the hardest one yet. Space Godzilla's lasers would all hurt MonsterVerse Godzilla, and using his other powers, Space Godzilla could send crystals onto legendary Godzilla from the sky, or directly into his face. Using his control of gravity, Space Godzilla could pick up MonsterVerse Godzilla and throw him. Legendary Godzilla's atomic breath again would be reflected by Space Godzilla, and Space Godzilla would continue to use all of his lasers, thus defeating legendary Godzilla with little damage to himself. Finally is Destroya, a monster set into an endless mutation by the Oxygen Destroyer, instantly starting the process the second he was exposed to oxygen in 1996. It took only about a week for him to go from a microscopic organism to the 130 meter tall Destroya. Destroya's power is far beyond the Oxygen Destroyer, with it being able to destroy living and non-living things. His lasers were able to instantly drop burning Godzilla, and his energy horn was able to cut through his body multiple times in a row, destroying his very cells. He was also able to physically overpower Burning Godzilla, to a point of him falling backwards, something not even the physically stronger Space Godzilla could do. The best power Destoroyah has against Legendary Godzilla is his ability to instantly drain any monster of their power. Even in his small crab form, he was able to control and absorb Burning Godzilla's excess of power. Unlike Heisei Godzilla, Legendary Godzilla isn't able to instantly recover from losing energy. In a fight with Destoroyah, Legendary Godzilla would not even get a second before Destoroyah runs into him, pushing him over. Monsterverse Godzilla would try to get up, right as Destoroyah wraps his tail around Legendary Godzilla's neck, dragging him from the city into the ocean. Legendary Godzilla would return to land, and would get close to Destoroyah, punching him, but Destoroyah would use his horn laser, cutting Godzilla's body internally, leaving Monsterverse Godzilla to fall to the ground. Destoroyah's next attack would be fatal against Legendary Godzilla, with him wrapping his tail around him, draining him of all his energy, leaving Legendary Godzilla's lifeless body on the ground. So would Legendary Godzilla survive the Heisei era? No, he wouldn't, but he could beat some weaker monsters like Rodan and Biollante, but he would stand no chance against the heavy hitters like Space Godzilla and Destoroyah. Now, something to remember is that against monsters like Super Mechagodzilla and Destoroyah, Heisei Godzilla would not even stand a chance, and only through the greatest plot armor I've ever seen was he able to beat both monsters. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.